Hang on. I'm going to quit eating my Tex Mex. Get a drink.
God, that's so off-putting.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another sermon from the Cigar Pulpit. I'm the Bishop at the Burn, Nick, and with me, as always,
Gator.
And today, we are going over the second half of our trip to the Weston Tobacco Festival.
Such a good time.
It was indeed a good time. So this is part two. The way we left at part one is the party was getting really ramped up in there and very, very loud and pretty much cut off all ability for us to record.
We finally gave up.
Yeah, it was a losing battle. We tried throughout most of the day, and
Still with the interview and everything, eked out over 40 minutes of podcast.
We got quite a bit recorded. You know, we got some interviews and whatnot taken care of, but we did end up having to give up.
We accomplished a lot, though, that day.
Once they started the Nebraska game in the exact room we were in, that and all the cheering and everything, that was when it pretty much became.
We had the room
point of
somewhat
no
to
return.
Ourselves until the game came on.
Until the game came on. Well, the Cigar guy was back there making deals.
He was.
He was back there with
Left and right, baby.
his catalog, like
Yep.
making deals with folks and stuff. But yeah, once the Nebraska game started, that was pretty much the end of our privacy.
Yes.
So
But we had a good time.
we did indeed.
And the party continued.
The party continued, which we'll get to that in a moment. But
Amen.
First, we'll go ahead and talk about the cigars that we are smoking. So in this episode, we are going to feature a interview that we had with Manuel Quesada. He is a well-known figure in the cigar industry. His family has roots going back to the 1860s in the cigar industry. He himself started his factory in 45 years ago and has been going strong since. And so what Jeff and I have decided is that rather than smoke the same cigar from Quesada Cigars, we're smoking different cigars so that we can kind of touch on some of the various angles
Compare and contrast
of his brand. So tonight I am smoking a Quesada 40th anniversary. It is a Mexican San Andreas Maduro wrapper with a Dominican Republic binder and Dominican Republic and Nicaraguan filler. I have the Anniversary Toro Real, which is a 6x65.
I, on the other hand, decided to go with a short Robusto. I've got a little 4x50 here, and this is actually one of the 1974 series. It is draped. I'm getting all this information, by the way, from Cigar Aficionado. Just want to give them a shout-out.
Look at that.
All right. It is draped in an Ecuadorian wrapper.
Draped.
That's what it says.
Draped.
In an Ecuadorian wrapper with a Dominican binder, and the filler is a mix of Dominican and Nicaraguan tobaccos. According to the Quesada Cigars, all of the Dominican tobaccos are grown by their own family, and the smoke is said to be medium to full-bodied. The really cool thing about this cigar, Nick, that you may not know, and I actually didn't know this till I got it, so I chose wisely. This was actually just introduced at the IPCPR trade show in Vegas back in, June, July. So this cigar has only been on the market in the U.S. for about 3 months. So, Nick, one really neat feature of this cigar is that it, again, called the 1974, and it was recently released in Spain to celebrate the company's 45th year in business. It's actually the year they started making cigars in the Dominican Republic.
Well, there you go. And
so I'm really excited about this cigar.
And we're going to hear about that, the opening of the factory and everything, when we get to the interview with Manuel Quesada.
I am looking forward. Can I make just a little observation?
What's that?
He's the nicest guy.
Oh, he really was.
He really was.
He is the nicest guy. And I'll tell you, he's got a voice that's like butter.
Butter. Like butter.
Total butter.
He had really no use for me, though. I could tell.
He seemed like me. We got along just fine.
Well, yeah, but I'm the comic relief.
He and I got along fine. Yeah, I mean, he didn't seem to have much.
He didn't like my whale joke.
He did not like the. We'll get to that in a minute, folks. We're going to tell you. We're going to tell you about the evening after we do the interview. But first, we are going to cut the cigars. And, of course, Jeff does not have his cutter,
No.
so he does not get to put a cigar tonight.
And I don't have a working lighter either. I don't even have a working lighter.
You don't even have a working lighter?
I have 3 lighters here. Not one of them is working. I have matches.
What did you do to your lighter?
Well, the giant Bic, look at the size of my Bic.
Yeah, look at the size of your Bic.
Yeah, the giant Bic broke. And then...
Broke?
Yeah, it's broke. Try to light it. Who knew a $3 lighter from a gas station would be janky?
Yeah, that's
broke. So, although I got, a good 6 months of use out of it, and then I've got this one that will spark, but there's no butane. And you know what? Look what they did. It is non-refillable on purpose.
Oh, those savages.
I know, right? I went to fill it with butane, and you can't.
Nope.
And then I have this. What would you call this?
It's a barbecue lighter.
Yeah.
Which is out of fuel as well.
So I am just in every direction, just screwed. But
I like how he's got multiple different lighter types, none of which are designed for cigars.
But I have strike anywhere matches, and my God, I've struck.
He's lit it up. So I have my torch because I'm prepared. It's just what I do.
I'm going old school. I will tell you, I felt a little bad.
Oh, I jacked that all up.
As we're standing there talking to Mr. Quesada. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, Quesada.
Because I don't believe I've ever had one of his cigars before.
Really?
Have you?
Yes.
You have not.
Actually,
But-
in all fairness, you and I did receive some of his cigars in our pack from the Kansas City Cigar
Yes,
Festival.
but we still have those. We've been saving those to review.
We have not smoked them yet. Yes. No. No, in the spirit of full transparency, I went into an interview with Manuel Quesada without having smoked one of his cigars. Now, I did purchase a couple of them.
As did I.
Prior to the interview with the intention of having smoked one, but then you and I, recorded the episode that was the part 1 of the Weston Tobacco Fest, where we smoked the house cigars.
I say that to say this. I'm going to seek these out now. Mm-hmm. This is a fabulous cigar. This may be one of the best cigars I've ever smoked.
Really?
Yes.
That little
This is a
medium
strength, medium to bold. Would normally be out of my wheelhouse. This is the perfect cigar.
There you go.
Yep. This is a fabulous cigar.
I am having my second Quesada cigar. I had one the other day prior to us leaving Leavenworth, right? Leavenworth?
That's right. We stayed in Leavenworth.
We stayed in Leavenworth.
They didn't keep us either.
They did not. So prior to us leaving our hotel, you and I sat outside, enjoyed the early afternoon sun and the baking, and I enjoyed a Casa Magna Gran Toro, and before we hit the road. That was a delightful, I use the word this time, delightful little cigar. It had a good flavor. It had some spice to it, and it definitely got a little spicier near the end of the cigar, I think. This one, so far, it is a Maduro, so it's a little heavier, but it also has a fantastic flavor. Smokes really well. Easy draw. Relatively clean burn line. I've got just like a little thing, but,
mine's pretty clean.
That'll correct itself, I'm sure. So
this may be my new favorite cigar.
That early into it, you're declaring it a winner already, huh?
I'm in the first third. Now, granted, it's a short Robusto. So, and see, I tend to like the short Robusto cigars a little more because
you get right to the flavor with the Robustos. It's none of that, like, waiting it out.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I'm there.
It's robust, hence the Robusto.
Robusto.
Yes. No, when you want to just plow ahead and just get the flavor right off the bat, Robustos.
And that's exactly what I'm doing here.
To go.
Yeah, this is definitely in the top 5, if not right up at the top.
Well,
I'll get into it. I'll get at least halfway through it before I declare. How about that?
I think that's fair.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
I'm telling you right now.
I mean, the fine folks at Quorum are going to be really upset if you're unseating them in the first third of a cigar.
I tend to smoke a little cheap. I admit it. But I will tell you, for the flavor, the price, and the stick here, I don't think this can be beat.
There you go. How much
that
was
says
that guy?
a lot. I don't remember the price point. It was probably somewhere in the $8 to $10 range.
For a little guy?
But it's good.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a good cigar.
I'm cheap.
You're not cheap. of the two of us, I am the one that smokes cheap. I will smoke Swishers and Quorums, and I'll smoke factory rejects.
Valid point.
Yeah, but when I want a good cigar, I'm not gonna lie. I'll do a Perdomo. I'll do a My Father. I'll do some of the the Oscars. I love the leaf, but this cigar is rapidly becoming one of my new favorites in the last 10 minutes here. This is good.
Interesting.
It's got a great flavor. Like you said, it's a little more of a medium cigar. I usually tend to go a little bit mild, medium to bold, but this, I got no complaints about this stick at all. And I'm just saying that because we got to know, I hope it's okay to call him Manuel.
I mean,
Mr. Quesada.
He told me to call him Manuel.
He did. He did not tell me to call him Manuel.
He did not tell you to call him Manuel.
But again, the nicest guy. I mean, he was completely opposite of what I expected when we met him. And he could not have been nicer. Yes. I'm not going to lie. These guys are running these major corporations, and quite frankly, I kind of expect them, how do I say this without sounding horrible? I kind of expect them to maybe be a little more standoffish, maybe not as friendly. And I'm telling you right now, Nick, that is not something I'm running into in the cigar industry.
No, not in the least.
Not
so far anyway.
Again, with Mr. Quesada, with Oscar, with the different people we've talked to, you had the experience with Nick Perdomo. Mm-hmm. These guys could not be more accommodating to what we're doing.
Yeah.
And, and quite frankly, I'm not going to say we're friends. We're not going to be hanging out on the weekends or anything. But I think we, established a fairly friendly relationship.
I was like, we're friendly.
Friendly. Mm-hmm. Yep. Well on its way to being friends.
So, all right. I think this is a good time to go ahead and slide into the interview with Manuel Quesada. And after we, catch up on that, then you and I can come back and kind of discuss what took place at the close of the Weston Tobacco Fest.
We weaseled our way into something.
That. We definitely found our way. We tripped and bumbled our way into a really awesome evening.
We bumbled our way. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
We definitely bumbled our way into a good night. So, with that, here is Manuel Quesada. So I am joined by Manuel Quesada. Very nice to meet you, sir.
My pleasure as well. And thank you for having me.
Well, no, thank you for taking time out. We're at the Weston Tobacco Festival. You're up here as a guest, and you're taking time away from everything to come and talk to us, and we really appreciate it.
My pleasure, sir.
So you have you and your family have an extremely long, storied history within tobacco. Would you mind kind of talking about that for a little while and just kind of going over your family history within the tobacco industry?
The family comes from the province of Asturias in Spain. The youngest of several siblings of a family arrived in Havana, and the elders had a bakery. When the young ones arrived, the elders told them, listen, there's enough of us here. Somebody paid a debt in tobacco. You and your brother take that tobacco and go. So my great-grandfather and my great-grand-uncle took off with the tobacco and started a company in 1867.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 1876. In 1902, they separated and formed two companies that became the largest exporters of Cuban tobacco from Cuba.
Okay.
And the reason of that was because dark cigarettes were the thing back then. The Gitan Galois and the Spanish cigarettes were all dark tobacco. And Dominican Republic and Cuba blended very well for the cigarette, the dark cigarette blends. When we left Cuba, we had been doing business in Dominican Republic since 1939, precisely because the Dominicans were buying to sell the tobacco against ours from Cuba.
Oh, okay.
And increase the percentage of their participation in the blends. So in 1939, one of my granduncles went to Dominican Republic, and we started dealing in Dominican Republic. 1947, my father got assigned to go to Dominican Republic every year and buy tobacco. So in 54 and 55, he took the whole family to Santiago, and we spent 2 summers in Santiago when I was 7 and 8 years old. So people still are astounded when I tell them things of the 50s in Santiago. How do you know that? Well, I was here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we started, once we donated everything to the new government in Cuba in 1960,
Yeah.
we moved to Dominican Republic and restarted the leaf broker business. In 1974, the family decided to open a cigar factory because in Miami they were having problems with the cigar makers because they were getting of age and paying under the table and all kinds of things. In the States, that's not the way to do business.
Yeah.
The free zones had just opened in Dominican Republic, industrial free zone, not commercial.
Yeah.
So the family, in the family raffle, I got the winning ticket. You go start a cigar factory in the free zone, 4 bales of tobacco, $100 in an empty building, go for it.
Oh, wow.
And in June of '74, we opened our doors. 3 cigar makers, a wooden table, a phone, and a chair. That was a factory. And no power because we had no lights. So we would make the cigars by the window, so take advantage of the sunlight.
Yeah.
1974, this is my 45th year making cigars, and my 60th as a tobacco purser, because I started in Dominican at 13.
Wow.
Cuba, I didn't have a chance to do other than mischief in the warehouses. We would steal rubber bands and make all kinds of. We were the children of one of the owners, so we just did whatever the heck we wanted.
Yeah.
Our building in Cuba had 2 basements, 3 floors, a roof, and a hotel, so we had a hell of a playground.
I was going to say.
While my father worked on Saturday mornings, my brother and I would run all over the place doing all kinds of childish things.
Yeah.
Once we got to Dominican, I went to high school in Miami Beach, St. Patrick's, graduated in '64, college in Santiago, working already in the warehouses. After that, after I graduated in '68, went to North Carolina State in Raleigh to get a master's in agriculture. 6 days prior final exams of my first semester at NC State, I got drafted.
For Vietnam.
Well, I got drafted into the Army.
Into the Army, but
Yeah.
it was around that time, though.
Yeah,
correct?
and finally, my orders came to go to Vietnam as infantry.
Oh.
So I landed in Nam on July 5th of 1969.
And what did you do in Vietnam?
I was a member of the recon platoon of the 1st Battalion, 8th Infantry of the 4th Infantry Division in the Northern Highlands.
Radio man.
I started as a radio man. I ended up being the point man for the recon platoon.
Oh, okay. Okay.
10 months in the front, and then I got taken back to the rear to take care of supplies for the battalion. And I ended my tour in the Army in Vietnam as a supply staff sergeant. Went back to Dominican, started the factory
Yeah.
in '74. I went to Florida State and got my master's, not in agriculture, because Florida State is not an agricultural school, in business. But I had in-state tuition rather than North Carolina, and the GI Bill wasn't that generous back then.
I see.
$175 a month didn't go. It went far enough, but not that far.
Not far enough for
Not
that.
far
yeah.
enough to go to Raleigh. So I got my master's out of FSU, came back and taught a little bit at the university in Santiago. And while working in the warehouses, opened the factory, and to today I've been in the factory.
Wow. Wow. So,
In a nutshell, that's a long 73 years to tell you about.
so, in terms of the cigar industry, you've seen a lot of ups and downs and changes between '74 when you started your factory
Yes,
in the
indeed.
Dominican,
Yes, indeed.
and then today, 45 years later.
Yeah.
You would have seen, I guess, the low points of the '80s, the extremely high points of the '90s. You know, kind of can you talk about maybe some of the best of times, worst of times, and how you've kind of managed to get through all that?
Amazingly enough, the best of times were before the boom, even because the industry was stable and growing ever so slightly. End of '79, '80, there was a slight uptick in consumption of premium cigars in the U.S. So 1980, the decade started with a little uptick. '81 was also a little uptick. So we kind of thought that we were moving up in the world.
A progressive kind of increase.
Slow but progressive, and that gave you time to prepare everything without rush and without. When the boom came in '92, everything just went haywire. It just went nuts. Shortages of tobacco, packing materials, cigar makers, everything was in short supply, and everybody competing for them and paying outrageous sums of money for whatever they could get their hands on. And it was very hectic, and we had to dedicate so much time to maintaining the factories going that we weren't able to generate new products, or in the fields generate new varieties by splicing and so on. Mm-hmm. It was just make cigars and get them out of here.
Yeah.
97, when the boom ended, 97, the boom ends. 98, 99, 2000, 2001 were tough years because we had overages of everything. We had been building inventory of tobacco, packing materials, teaching cigar makers in schools and the factories. So those 3 or 4 years after the boom were lean because we couldn't go back to the fields and grow normal amounts of tobacco because we had huge inventories.
Yeah.
So till 2002 or 3, everything was kind of building up, getting rid of the maelstrom of the boom and starting to go back to the farms and starting to go back to our warehouses and starting to develop new blends and starting to create new things. And from there on, I think today is the best time for a cigar smoker to be a cigar smoker. My colleagues and competitors are doing extremely great product. There's a huge amount of great cigars in the market, and I am very proud and honored to be part of that group that is making the great cigars of today for the markets both in the U.S. and in Europe.
So tell us a little bit about your umbrella of cigars, your brands and your products.
Well, we have three major brands. Fonseca, which we have been making for 45 years. We opened the factory with Fonseca. Casa Magna, which we make in Nicaragua with the Plasencia family, and the Quesada brand, which we make in Dominican Republic. Okay. Fonseca has 5 sub-brands, the Fonseca Classic, the Vintage, the Limitado, the Exclusivo, and the Nicaragua. Casa Magna has 3 main sub-brands, the Colorado, which is the original, the D Magnus, which is an offshoot of the Colorado, and the Jalapa Claro, which is also an offshoot of the Colorado. But the 3 are different within the same ballpark of being a Nicaraguan puro.
Yeah.
And then the Quesada, of course, has different variations as well. It has the España, which we debuted in Spain to go head-to-head with the Cubans. The 40th anniversary, which was a celebration of my 40 years of making cigars. The Reserva Privada, which in 1997 was a beautiful crop. And I told, before my father passed away that year, and my brother, I told him, listen, we have to put some of this tobacco away. Why? I said, don't ask why, just put it away and hide it.
Yeah.
Don't ask me again about it. And I've been fighting since 97 to keep it there because my young ones went, we want to use that. I said, no, go somewhere else. But for the Reserva Privada, I said, well, my daughters and my young ones thought I was a dinosaur, too old, that wasn't in touch with the market. So I said, all right, let me make a blend and judge. So I took the 97 tobacco, blended it with a couple of other Cuban seeds from Dominican, and made the Reserva Privada. And we put it up against a couple of blends that they had made. And mine was one that everybody liked. So I said, wow, I guess dinosaurs can still play, huh?
Fantastic. The Weston Tobacco Festival, you guys are here obviously promoting your brand, and I know you're circling around a little bit. You're going to be coming our way to the Hill Cigar Company, I believe,
yes, sir. On Friday.
A week,
yes,
or next week. So your relationship with Corey, can you kind of just touch on that a little bit?
Having studied in Miami Beach, which I consider the South, even though it's a little bit fancy for the South.
Yeah.
But I was sort of educated in Cuba first, then Miami, then North Carolina. I served with a lot of people from the Midwest and the South, mostly. We were 18 people in our platoon, 20 if we were full strength. And I would say that 3/4 of them were from Louisiana, Nebraska, Montana, North Carolina, either the Midwest or the South. And I just got along great with them. And I've always had a fondness for the Midwestern people. They're kind, they're gentle, they're affable, they're amicable, they're just great people. And Corey is a hell of an example of that. No Midwestern in the person.
Yeah.
Corey is just hardworking, honest, and he will tell you to your face how honest he is. And he will wear his hat no matter where he's at. So, But Corey, I love Corey. He's a great person, and of course Zeb has done a great job here with the shop, and we have been supporting the festival since they started.
And then I know I'm kind of jumping around, so I apologize for that. Things are kind of coming to me as we go here. So, but there's a lot of challenges facing the cigar industry, specifically government regulation and things of that nature.
Indeed.
You know, what do you kind of feel like the next 5 years could very well bring to the industry?
I was asked that question yesterday in Springfield, Missouri. A young man who was doing a school project of the economy of Dominican Republic, because his parents deal with Dominican Republic. Jess and Christian Hudson, just for him.
Yeah.
So their son Braden was doing this work. And he asked me that same question. And I said, listen, as long as human beings are searching for pleasure, cigars are going to be a part of that search.
Yeah.
Because cigars are a great match with food, with beverages that we
Spirits.
consume,
Yeah.
coffees, people, and it's a social product. It brings people together. So as long as people are looking for pleasure in the world, cigars are going to be a part of that search. So I think that cigars are safe. We are facing, and I am more afraid of prohibition than I am of taxation. Taxation, I don't approve of it, but we will always find the next quarter to buy a cigar.
Yeah.
But if we find a quarter and buy the cigar and don't find a place to smoke it, it's pointless. So prohibition to me is worse, a lot worse. And I feel that we have moved the pendulum all the way to the other side and have done draconian measures. Because if people enjoy smoking, there should be places where there will be smoke.
Yeah.
And then you don't go there
Yeah.
if you don't smoke. And if I smoke, I don't go to the places where I can't smoke.
Precisely.
How difficult is that?
Personal choice.
How difficult is that to just set up that way? And Europe has done a lot of that we haven't. They have done a lot of prohibition as well, but they have made a point to let you choose if you want to be a smoking establishment or not.
Well, we come from Illinois, and I mean, just some of the rules and regulations there in Illinois regarding that are just, as you said, draconian. I mean, in terms of if you wanted to even open a shop and have a lounge, I mean, the rules and regulations regarding that are just so oppressive that there's no way a business can actually make money and follow the law in terms of being able to allow for smoking indoors.
Within the boundaries of all the harm, I have to admit and accept and be grateful that at least they grandfathered, a lot of states grandfathered certain enterprises that were already in business.
And that's true.
So we have to be grateful for that. But we're ungrateful for them not allowing new venues to be opened that are of that choice.
Yes. And then finally, within the cigar industry, obviously, I know you are a huge fan of your own brand and everything like that. Is there anything else that maybe that you've encountered, other brands, other things that maybe you have kind of hit you and said, that's really good? And
I told Henke Kellner of Davidoff, and I was asked this question previously, and I admitted it. Henke Davidoff makes a cigar that I would smoke if I could afford it.
Yeah.
and I wasn't a manufacturer.
That's a valid point.
Yeah. They're double R Robusto I would smoke.
Okay.
And today I even told them the Churchill, I would smoke the Churchill too. The Churchill from Davidoff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those two I would smoke from other companies. Davidoff if I could afford them.
Yeah.
And Lito, also my dear friend, makes a lovely small Corona in Cameroon wrapper that I will also smoke. And that one I could afford probably.
There you go. There you go. Now, under your line, do you have a favorite? I know I'm asking you kind of to pick a child here, but
Yeah, they're all my children.
Yeah.
But I do have go-tos.
Yeah.
But we have to remember that palettes are
And
not static.
That's definitely true.
Palettes are dynamic.
Yeah.
And they're always changing. So sometimes a go-to will take a second place to a new go-to.
Yeah.
Because things have changed and they will rotate. So my go-to, I have a map.
Okay.
A sweet spot and then peripheral within the map that cater to special occasions. If it's a football game or a whiskey night or a poker game, cigars that I move around. But when I sit down with a drink, my music, my computer, and a cigar, I have that sweet spot where certain cigars do fall in.
So, right now, given your palate as it is at this moment, what's your sweet spot?
The 1974, which is a new blend that came out now for the IPCPR. Well, we debuted it at the Pro Cigar Festival, started selling in Europe, and came to the U.S. at the IPCPR. The 1974 is one of my today go-tos.
Okay.
My 70, when I turned 70, I made me a cigar.
Yeah, I saw that in the humidor
Yeah,
here.
because I have people so I can make me a cigar. So I made me a cigar. To my taste, and that's still one of my go-tos. Oktoberfest every year, when it's August to November, it's a seasonal cigar, so when that period comes around, I pick a couple of Oktoberfests as well.
You know, I saw those in there as well. So, real quick, what is the difference of the Oktoberfest within some of the other cigars of yours?
The Oktoberfest in 2011, our first release, was blended to marry with the Oktoberfest beers, the Marzen-style beers. So we drank a lot of beer, by the way. We had a lot of fun.
Research.
We had a lot of fun researching. But we blended it to marry and complement and be a companion to the beers of Oktoberfest.
Okay.
Every year, the blend changes a little bit. Maybe the wrapper is a new wrapper, or some of the fillers are tweaked a little bit. This year's launch, the 2019, is evoking the 2011, which was the very first Oktoberfest, and that was a great cigar. So the 2019 reminds you of the 2011.
Fantastic.
Now,
All right. Well, Mr. Quesada, thank you very much
please,
for your
Manuel.
time.
It's
Manuel,
more than enough.
thank you very much for your time. I truly appreciate it.
It has been my pleasure. Thank you.
Right.
And I hope to see you Friday at the Hill.
I will definitely make it a point to swing on by, at least for a little bit.
And if you want to chat a little more, Jessica will join us, and that would be a hell of a
Jessica's great,
a
isn't
trio.
she?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that is our home cigar lounge. Like I said, we're over on the Illinois side, and we don't really have. There's like one place locally.
Which one?
The Tinderbox that's in Fairview Heights, Illinois.
You ever been to the Up Down shop?
No. Where's that at?
Up Down in Chicago. I don't know the
Oh,
address.
yeah. No. We're about 6 hours south of Chicago,
that's a long
so I don't
way.
make it up there too terribly.
No, I thought you were in the city.
No. We're about 10 minutes out of 15 minutes out of St. Louis to the east of St.
Oh,
Louis.
God,
there.
you're almost a Missourian.
Precisely. I wish we were, but no. So we just hop the river and we go over and visit Jess over at the Hill, and I mean,
yeah, that's a lot easier.
It's the best lounge we've found around over there. I mean, you know. It depends on what you're into. I mean, there's the Stanley downtown, which is a little bit more, I don't know,
upscale,
frou-frou kind of thing and everything. Hoi polloi, but the folks at the Hill, between Jess and the other patrons and whatnot,
and Tim is a great guy too.
Oh yeah, I mean, and they do.
And his wife Deb, they're great people.
They're fantastic people, and then just in terms of the shop itself, they just do a magnificent job stocking the humidor, treating everybody so politely and welcoming and everything. So, yeah, we can't beat the Hill.
It's the Hill.
So, exactly. And there's all that great Italian food like right around there. So,
Indeed.
yeah, but Well, sir, thank you very much. I really do
It's been
appreciate
my
it.
pleasure.
Nick, what an outstanding interview.
Oh, thank you.
You know, you covered a lot of bases in this thing. Now,
It helps that he gave extraordinarily great answers.
and I mean, the guy should be on radio. What a voice.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Telling you.
So, a couple of things that I noted with this. One, you know, again, thank you to Mr. Quesada for his service to our country.
Yes.
We really do appreciate
Yes.
that. Number two, one of the things towards the end of the interview, you talked about some other cigar stores and whatnot, and you talked about the Hill. And, of course, we're in an event out, you know, at the Weston Tobacco Company. But one of the neat things about that event is there were several patrons and even Jess, an employee from the Hill Cigar Company in St. Louis, that made the trek out to Weston for Corey for this event.
Oh, yeah. No, we bumped into Jess pretty early on when we got there, and it was really nice to see her. I know that I had mentioned to her that we were going out there, and she didn't quite indicate to me that she was going to be there. And then all of a sudden, boom, there she was with her husband, and it was really nice to see.
Yeah, her and her husband were there.
Yeah.
Tron, one of the patrons from the Hill that we know, was there.
He was there.
It was really neat to see, you know, some people from the Hill Cigar Company supporting the Weston Cigar Company.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was really impressed by that. And that's one thing that, you know, we've touched on with the cigar industry. And it's, again, you know, it's something we experienced later that night that we're going to talk about here. But there's a camaraderie even among the manufacturers.
It's a community. It truly is a community.
I'm going to say this real quick. This cigar
Yeah.
is outstanding. I can't say enough good things about the 1974. I've never smoked it before. It's only been on the market for 2 to 3 months.
No, I'm definitely enjoying mine as well. I'm getting a lot more spice out of it as it progresses, but it's a great cigar.
Yeah, the
lot
flavor
of complexities to it.
profile has changed on this 1974, but every stage of the cigar that I've hit so far, you know, we actually sat and listened to the interview as it was playing for the podcast. So because I hadn't heard it, I was actually doing your producer work at the Weston Cigar Festival and going around and lining up other interviews and whatnot.
Racking and stacking them,
exactly.
baby.
I had interviews stacked up like cordwood for you. And we're going to be playing those over the next couple of podcasts here because we actually got to talk to a lady, a very nice lady that owns a cigar company, a manufacturing company in
Elohio. It was Elohio Cigars.
Yes. And we got to speak with her and along with Oscar, who we've actually interviewed before, but on our YouTube.
Yeah.
We did a nice video interview with him.
And we got a little bit of chance to kind of sit down and do a little longer form interview with him this time, kind of really dive in a little bit more. Because the last time, you know, he was having an event at the Hill. It was pretty early in his event, and we didn't want to monopolize too much of his time. So we just kind of went in and just, you know, quick little interview and everything like that. But no,
Mr. Quesada, Oscar, the different people, they could not be more gracious to sit down and talk to us. And, I mean, it's a testament to them.
And I'll say this about Mr. Quesada, Manuel, as he asked me to
You got to
call
rub
him
that
at
in,
the
don't you?
So one thing Manuel pointed out a couple of different times that I picked up on is that he's obviously very high on his own brand, and he should
Why
be.
wouldn't
I
he
mean,
be? Exactly.
He should be.
And he should be. With the cigar that I'm smoking right now, he ought to be.
He should be. But one thing that did stand out to me is how he definitely has a mindset of a rising tide lifts all ships. And what I mean by that is at least a couple of different times in that interview, you heard him mention, you know, how there's so many great cigars out there these days, and it's how this is the best time there is to be a cigar smoker because there's such a gluttony of wonderful products in the market.
That comment stuck with me, by the way, because he's absolutely right.
He was indirectly, he was directly shoveling praise on his cohorts in the cigar industry, and I thought that was very wonderful to hear a manufacturer do that.
He's literally, of the manufacturers, you've asked the question about other people's cigars, he's the first one to answer.
He is the first one to actually answer with an answer of somebody else's cigars.
And you know, I actually understand someone that says, no, I'm smoking mine. I'm making the best product that's out there, and by God, it's what I'm going to smoke.
Again, because I would expect them to say, I have the best product, because, you know, nobody's going to come out and say, yeah, I've got a great cigar, but his is a lot better.
Exactly.
But I love my cigar. Nobody's going to say that, and I don't expect them to say that. But my whole theory behind asking that question is, there's a lot going on all around in these different companies. There's different blends happening. No one person has all the ideas. And so it's one of those things where Manuel Quesada, Oscar Valadares, Nick Perdomo, a Christian Aroa, any one of these guys, you know what? They have fantastic ideas for cigars, and they're putting out some really quality products. But at the same time, maybe Manuel didn't consider blending these two tobaccos that maybe Christian Aroa did, or maybe Nick Perdomo is coming up with a blend that Oscar hadn't considered. And so it's one of those things where I understand maybe not publicly saying, oh yeah, I enjoy these other cigars too, but I would hope that maybe they're taking time to just try other people's stuff.
Well, and even if they're not, they may have staff that are.
And not with the intention of ripping somebody off. That's the other thing. I don't think any one of these guys would try another cigar and say, "Holy cow, I love that blend. I'm going to rip that off." But just to see what else is out there.
But even with us in the newspaper industry, there's no new idea. You just take an idea and you run with it, or
and
you
figure out how to tweak it for yourself.
Exactly.
You and I, every time we go to a city, we make it a point of trying to find all the free, either weekly or alt-weekly or daily papers and everything like that, just to check out maybe some things that other people are doing. There's a paper in my dad's town of Fishers, Indiana, that what they do with their city council is they have a little just infographic saying what they did, how this impacts you. And it's literally a one-sentence bullet point of what the council did and a one-sentence bullet point of how that impacts you. And I've been wanting to rip that off for the better part of 5 years with my paper, and I haven't gotten around to it, but I think it's a great idea. I have a whole box of clippings in my office of things from papers that I've seen that I'm like, I really like that, and I need to figure out a way to incorporate that into my product. And I don't think that that's necessarily ripping it off. I think it's looking at ideas and saying, hey, I like the way that's presented. How can I tailor that to my product and make it unique?
Exactly.
And so I will say I do applaud him for at least publicly admitting that there are some cigars that are not his own that he would be more than happy to smoke.
I thought that was very gracious of him.
It was.
Now, so after you got done with the interview with Mr. Quesada and also the other interviews that we did.
Yeah, it was a solid amount of interviews.
We moseyed our way back upstairs. Back up to the cigar festival. The band's playing. We're getting ready to wrap up.
About 6 o'clock, all the cigar manufacturers started packing up. And but the event lasted until 8, so the band was going and everything like that.
Great band.
It was a good band.
I took a picture of them for our socials. I don't know if I sent that to you or not yet.
I don't know. So anyway, we went up there, hung out for a little bit, and it was kind of wrapping up.
By the way, I want to point out, in the first part of our podcast that came out earlier this week.
Yes.
We mentioned that, it was like a granary shed or, some kind of grain mill or whatever.
Yeah.
It's actually a tobacco barn.
Yeah, we found that out after we recorded that. So it is.
And I did not realize, but apparently the Weston area was known for growing tobacco.
A lot of it was cigarette tobacco, but yeah exactly. So
it was the event was actually held in a tobacco
farm.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. So we went upstairs, we hung out, we had some drinks, had a cigar, and just kind of enjoyed the rest of the evening. And so we're just kind of hanging out, enjoying the evening, having some drinks and some cigars, and just hanging out.
And then the night took a turn.
Well, the night started to wind down, and by this point, it was Corey and a couple of his folks standing around, Oscar and his assistant, and Manuel
and his assistant,
and his assistant, and Jess from the Hill and her husband Tron, and then you and I. And somehow or another, and I have a sneaking suspicion we have Jess to thank for this.
We do have Jess to thank for this.
You and I got an invite back to Corey's house for the after party.
Yes.
Which Full disclosure, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I looked at you and I said, man, I really want to go, but I am exhausted.
Oh, we were crashing.
We were dying on the vine.
But we rallied.
Because, dude, I was up by, 4:30 in the morning that day. I picked you up and... we drove all that way out there and everything, and we didn't even go to the hotel yet. I mean, we haven't even checked into the hotel.
When we got there, we basically ate and started working.
And we barely even ate because, by the time we got there, the lunch portion was pretty much over
the food
with.
Was so good, though.
It was good, but we kind of got to the tail end of the food, so we kind of snarfed real quick and got in on it. And so, we're standing there and we're like, do we do this? And for me, there really wasn't a question. It was more of a question, how long am I going to stay?
Yeah.
But it was, I'm so glad we did. So,
folks, this is one of those moments that for me, and I'm sure Nick will agree with me, it was very surreal.
Oh, yeah.
We're sitting around a table in Corey's backyard with Oscar and Manuel, and we're smoking cigars and drinking bourbon.
And Corey's son. And we're just hanging out, having a good time, throwing the glow-in-the-dark ball for the dog to go play fetch with.
Love that dog.
And, I mean, we're just having just a hell of a time. Just sitting around, drinking and smoking and just talking life, telling stupid jokes. That's when you told them the whale joke, by the way.
It was.
And what did Manuel tell you?
Said it was the second worst joke he's ever heard.
And then Tron told the joke, and he looked at you and said, yours is now the third worst joke I've ever heard, which I thought was great. But anyway, it was, I cannot put into words how much fun we had that night.
Yes. It was, like I said, it was very surreal. It was one of those moments for somebody that's really into cigars. And, let's be honest, it's a small subculture of cigar smokers. But for me, it was one of those moments I'll never forget.
Oh, yeah. Within the world of cigars, I mean, and admittedly, you got to look at it through the prism of what we're talking about here. It's like, are we talking about Hollywood stars, rock and roll stars, former presidents, whatever? I mean, there's levels of fame, but at the same time, within the cigar industry, we're sitting with two pretty prominent guys just hanging out and just talking about all kinds of stupid stuff.
And learning from them.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I will tell you this. I would be more interested in the conversation and the company we had that night than I would any sports star. Other than Kurt Warner. I would love to have a conversation with Kurt Warner. Okay. And Kurt, if you smoke cigars and you want to come on the podcast, I'd love that. But other than Kurt Warner, I can't think of anyone I would have rather sat down with and talked to.
I had an amazing time that night.
Yeah.
And, I mean, by the end of it...
We had a horseshoe up our butt. That's all I've got to say.
Yeah.
We are the luckiest guys on the planet.
That was easily one of the coolest events I could have. That night took a turn that... When we went out to that festival, I did not anticipate that night going that way.
No.
I fully anticipated before it was all said and done, you and I were going to end up at the Fairfield Inn, sitting outside by the fire pit, the two of us talking about the festival. I had no idea that we were going to end up sitting around a table in Corey's backyard talking cigars with, Manuel.
Two of the big hitters in the industry.
Right. So, and now I'll tell you the aspect of the conversation that I would love to know.
Go ahead.
I don't speak Spanish. I would have paid good money to know what Manuel and Oscar were talking about at various points during that. Well, I'm sure it was us.
They were picking on us, let's be honest.
They're like, why are we sitting around this table with these three jack-offs, But, and then Corey's son. But, not including Corey's son in that. But
Corey's son was pretty cool.
Corey's son was a good
He'd gotten
guy.
up that morning at like 4 a.m. and started helping cook food.
Oh.
That kid is a trooper.
He put in a lot of hard work that day, and he was hanging out, smoking, drinking, and having a good time with us at the end of the day, holding his own. And it was awesome. It was a great, great night.
It really was.
And so...
the one part we have to thank Jess for weaseling us into this invite. It was essentially
I think that's
essentially like Wedding Crashers when the girl jumps up and down and holds her breath. I have this vision of just doing that, demanding that we get to go back to the island and play touch football.
I know. It was great. It really was great.
But we also have to thank Corey for giving us the invite to the event.
Yes.
We'd have never known about that event if he hadn't told
if
us.
Corey hadn't mentioned this at the Kansas City Cigar Fest, we would have never known about this, and we would not have had the spectacular time that we did. And I know after talking with Corey, it is we are going back out there again next year.
Absolutely.
And I would heavily encourage anybody who is within even a good drive's distance
A day
from
trip,
Weston,
yeah.
Missouri, get to this festival. It is the most casual, fun time that you'll have with 450, 500 people that you can imagine. And
Absolutely.
everybody is just super chill, having an awesome time, and I couldn't have imagined this going any better.
Absolutely. Well, Nick, I normally say it's a valiant effort, but your interview was spectacular. And, I mean, Mr. Quesada could not have been more gracious in the interview, and we really do thank him. I will tell you that the 1974 has become one of my new favorite sticks tonight. If it's not at the top, it might be at the top. This is a good cigar.
Well, good.
How was yours?
Mine was fantastic. Mine was, like I said, it was a good solid smoke all the way through. It did get a little bit of spice at the end, and it was a fantastic cigar. Seriously. If you haven't had the Quesada 40th anniversary, I would highly recommend it. It was a great, it's a full-bodied cigar. I mean, it's not fooling around.
This is different than what we normally do. These two sticks could not have been more farther apart, but they were both what we like.
It's a real earthy, and like I said, it got spicy, in the back half and everything, but it was a very great cigar that I would highly recommend to anybody.
Absolutely. So. And the same again for me with the 1974.
And I will be seeing Mr. Quesada again this evening.
The podcast comes out on Friday.
I would say this podcast is coming out on Friday, October the 4th. And he will be doing
2019. Let's throw that out.
I would say 2019 in case somebody's binge listening. But we that this evening, Manuel will be doing an event at the Hill Cigar Company. And he was insistent multiple times, not just in that interview, but multiple times throughout the evening, that I swing back by and say hi. So there's no way.
I will not be able to because I'm going to be actually up at the National Newspaper Convention, the National Newspaper Association Convention up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And he really didn't seem to mind that I wasn't going to be there.
Well,
I'm joking. He could not have been nicer to the two of us.
Yeah,
he really couldn't have been. But, yeah, Nick, I think Nick bonded with
so I will be
Mr. Quesada.
Definitely swinging by to say hi and enjoying that event for a little while. And then the next day, so Saturday, October 5th, I will be traveling to Kentucky for the Drew Estates Kentucky Barn Smoke.
I'm jealous.
That, I think, is going to be a fun time.
Yeah, I'm jealous of that. I really am. But, I'm going to have fun up in Milwaukee. I look for, I'm looking for a cigar lounge in Milwaukee that I can go to and maybe do a quick interview with the owners and whatnot for the podcast later down the road.
Be fun.
Because we've got a few racked and stacked now, so we've got a couple,
Well, we have interviews.
Yeah, we have interviews.
We still have to bookend them.
Exactly.
So.
But that being said, if you are out in the audience and you are from the Milwaukee area and you have a recommendation for me, please send us an email. How do they get a hold of us there, Nick?
Yeah, you can contact, you should be following the Cigar Pulpit on Instagram.
Amen.
It's at the Cigar Pulpit. And you can email us at nick@cigarpulpit.com. Also follow us on YouTube. We throw up videos every once in a while, and with the intention of more. And also, if you haven't subscribed to this show, but maybe you're just checking it out for the first time, maybe somebody recommended it, or maybe you just periodically swing back by every once in a while and check out an episode, go ahead and subscribe to the show. Leave us a review, preferably 5 stars. That makes my ego feel good.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
And why wouldn't you?
And tell a friend.
This is quality cigar entertainment right here.
It is, truly. So.
Well, Nick, great show, buddy.
All right. Well, with that, this has been another sermon from the Cigar Pulpit. I'm the Bishop of the Burn, Nick. And
I'm Gator.
have a good evening and stay smoky, everyone.